Good morning. I'm Richard Calhoun, Creekside Realty. We're here to discuss the Silicon Valley real estate marketplace and then the Greater Bay Area real estate marketplace. The slides flashing on the screen are some of the slides that we will be going over. Basically, we're going to start off and look at the micro markets of Silicon Valley. That's 20 small regions within the three counties, Santa Clara County, San Mateo County, and Alameda County, that make up Silicon Valley. Then we'll look at Silicon Valley as a whole, which would be all three counties blended together in a blender. Then we'll come back and look at each county data. And then after that, we'll wrap up by looking at the Greater Bay Area, which includes 5 regions, 13 counties, including the Central Valley, which is Sacramento and San Joaquin, and the Central Coast, which is Santa Cruz and Monterey. So here's a summary of the heat maps that we're going to be going over. We'll discuss this a little bit more in detail after we've gone through it. So here's the first heat map. And basically what this is saying in a nutshell is all of Santa Clara County and the coast of San Mateo County and the north part of San Mateo County is experiencing a shortage of inventory. And you can see the percentages here of normal. In Santa Clara County, we're 30% of normal, 45%. The highest normal we have is 75, other than Palo Alto at 101%. You'd expect to have the normal level of inventory. When you have less inventory, that tends to favor the sellers because there's just nothing there for the buyers to choose from. Now we flip over and look at the number of offers. We have a huge shortage of offers. We have less offers than we normally do. And again, those numbers are significant. 50 to 75% of the offers you'd expect to have in Santa Clara County, around 2/3 the offers you'd expect in San Mateo County. And that's based on a 10-year median. So we're going back and looking at the 10-year median, and basically we'll find out we're having the least number of offers of the last 25 years currently in a good portion of the Bay Area. Days of unsold inventory is far more important than either the inventory or the number of offers, because it's the ratio between the number of offers and active listings. So here you can see that San Mateo County is blue in color, and blue in color typically means a buyer's marketplace. And you can see that you have basically from 120% of the inventory you'd expect up to 261%, not of the inventory you'd expect, but of the days of inventory you'd expect. Days of inventory is how quick the market's turning over, the speed of the marketplace. But then you jump down to Santa Clara County, and we're actually mostly red. And that's basically saying that we're having a lower DUI, days of unsold inventory, which is a faster marketplace. I clearly have the color wrong for South County, so I apologize for that, because at 81%, it should not be blue. It should be a faint shade of red. And that is one of these heat maps are actually one of the most labor-intensive parts. And so I'm more inclined to make errors. So I have the hex color wrong. Here's the days of unsold inventory. This is just raw counts. This is people that say, forget all the comparisons. What's the market doing today? And, the market's pretty reasonable. In Alameda County, you're down here somewhere right around 3 weeks. And I consider basically anything from 1 to 6 weeks to be a seller's marketplace. And, 3-4 weeks would be clearly a seller's marketplace. You come down to Santa Clara County and you're somewhere around under 3 weeks, over 2 weeks for the most part. And again, that would clearly be a seller's marketplace. You go up into San Mateo County and, you have a little bit more mixture there. You have the expensive areas at 136%. So that would be not 136%, 136 days. So it would take almost a half a year to sell all the existing inventory in the expensive areas. Here is days on market. So this is sort of refreshing everybody and saying, okay, let's just look at the time on the marketplace for the properties that do sell. and we're looking at the 75th percentile. That's the third quadrant. Is have 75% of your sellers in Santa Clara County selling in 2 to 3 weeks. That's pretty aggressive. In San Mateo County, it's more like 3 to 4 weeks. And the exception is Atherton, the expensive areas, at 69 days. It's taking a little over 2 months, but still, to sell an expensive home in 2 months is not unreasonable by any stretch of the imagination. And you go into Alameda County and you're pretty much right at 2 weeks, no matter what micro market area you look at there. This is the average list price reductions. I am going to be changing this from the percent of original ask price to the percent reduction. So these are going to become like 1%, 0.9%, 0.4%. I think it's going to make the numbers a whole lot easier to see and grasp. I think the 99 just, clutters it up. And it's also a very tight criteria. Basically, I'm saying from 99.75% to 100.1% would be a seller's marketplace. From 99.25% to 99.75% is sort of a balanced marketplace. And anytime you're starting to get 99.25% or more reductions, so basically 0.75% reduction, you're actually favoring the buyers. So you can see the expensive areas in Santa Clara County and in San Mateo County are experiencing fairly significant price reductions. What's fairly significant? They're basically 2.5%. What I'm seeing is Atherton again at 4% price reductions. A lot of people wouldn't say that's huge, but remember, a lot of agents and sellers do research before they put their house on the marketplace, and they put it on at the price they expect to sell. And the vast majorities sellers don't do any price reduction whatsoever. And so when you average all those 100%, that's why the number is so high at 4%. So 4% is a fairly significant reduction. This is how common are those price reductions. So you can see they're most common in the Atherton, the expensive areas in San Mateo County at 41%. So almost half the sellers are taking some sort of a price reduction. In Santa Clara County, you're basically somewhere around 10%. Maybe even 20%, 10 to 20%, depending on what area. In Alameda County, tighter knit, basically from 6% to maybe 12%, a tighter criteria, but you can see the number of sellers that have reduced their price are fairly small. This is the amount of overbid. This is flipping over and looking at what the buyers are doing. How much are the buyers overbidding? And this is the magnitude. So this is how far over asking price are they doing. And in Santa Clara County, you can see they're right around 7% above asking price. The expensive areas are a little bit below. And if you go over into Alameda County down here at the bottom, you're basically 5 to 7%. Alameda County tends to not be as much overbidding as Santa Clara as far as the magnitude. And I think it's because people that are buying in Alameda County tend to be buying in Alameda County for affordability, and therefore they watch what they overbid. But as has been most of the year, I believe, Oakland and Berkeley and the city of Alameda have the greatest amount of overbidding, with Alameda almost at 19% above the seller's asking price. Here's the frequency of overbidding. So how common is overbidding? In Santa Clara County, you can see 2/3 to 3/4 of the sellers are getting more than their asking price. In San Mateo County, it might be around 60%, but you clearly have two major exceptions here, one at 14% and one at 28%. There's a big difference between 3/4 of the sellers getting more than their asking price and only 25% of the sellers getting more than their asking price. And then if you go over to Alameda County, it's mostly right around 75% of the sellers are getting more than their asking price. and it's cumulative appreciation since the last 9 months of 2015. And again, I'm going to remove the 1 because it almost sounds like I'm saying that homes have doubled in price when they've only gone up by a factor of 1. And it's just the math. I did it quickly. So I'm going to go back and clear it to show basically 50% appreciation instead of 150% appreciation. But basically prices now are 150% of what they were in 2015, 180% in Milpitas, for example. A lot of the west side, San Mateo County, is much lower, somewhere around 155 to 160%. And then you go into Alameda County and you're basically 190%. Alameda County is seeing the highest appreciation, and I believe that's strictly due to affordability and people being able to buy there now. Here is the sold price, and not only do I follow the median price, which is the middle number, but I also sandwich it by following the cheapest 10% in the given region and also the most expensive 10% in that same given region. So you have the 10%, 50%, and 90%, and that allows you to see what's going on in a given area. You can see that Alameda County is more affordable than a lot of your Silicon Valley areas. San Mateo County is the least affordable. Now we're looking at a summary of everything we've gone over. So you have the active listings over here, and the number of active listings is the raw count, and that varies based on the size. So that really, it doesn't tell you anything, which is why I put in what percentage of normal is that, and that's looking at the median for the last 10 years. And then the same with the number of offers, DUI, basically what is it actually right now, and then the norm, days on market, 75 percentile. How long is it taking this 75th percentile seller to sell? Ask price reductions, how big are the price reductions? The frequency of the price reductions, the magnitude of the overbidding, the frequency of the overbidding, the appreciation accumulative since 2015, the price, and then finally the payment that someone would make if they were doing an 80% loan. This is taking all of Silicon Valley, and we're looking at the purple line as inventory. So inventory for Silicon Valley is basically 58% of what you'd expect it to be, which is clearly not good for a buyer. The buyer has only half the opportunity that they normally would have. And then you look at the number of offers, we're selling about 70% of the houses we normally do. With less inventory, we're being 60%, we're selling less homes, 70%, but the 70% is a greater percentage than the 60%. So your DUI is faster than normal and has basically been coming down and is currently now at 82% of where you'd expect it to be. Here's a table of just numbers, and it's basically looking at the number of offers accepted in the past 5 weeks. And you can see that basically 2023 was the record low every single week, except for right here, which is when we were getting beat by 2020, and that was the shelter-in-place orders for the pandemic. When you can't even show houses, you can't typically sell them. To have only 1,884 homes selling now, which is only 91% the previous record low. So our previous record low, which was just last year, we're now only selling 91% of that amount. So we're basically 8.5% below last year's record low levels. This is looking at the payments for the typical house. This would be the 10 percentile house. Sorry that I didn't show the number here, didn't catch that. And the 90% home is up here at almost 25,000. we're looking at ask price reductions, and we're looking at a weekly distribution, and we're going back a whole year, and then we're going to step forward initially a month at a time. And then when we get to 3 months back, we're going to start going forward with 1 week at a time. And I think I'm going to point out, well, I will point out something that's coming up here shortly. So you can see that's the bottom, huge improvement this spring, plateau, a little bit more improvement. There's the peak. And now we've already come back down. And the peak was basically 6 weeks ago, which turns out to be right where you'd expect it to be, the 5 weeks before Memorial Day. And now we look at the buyer side, which is overbidding, and the same concept. You can see the decrease and then the huge improvement. Now we're not going to see the decline yet because there's a delay of about 5 weeks in the data here, because escrows need to close, and that takes 5-6 weeks to close. And so if my peak of the marketplace was 6 weeks ago, I'd expect the decline to start showing up as early as next week. Here is Silicon Valley's active inventory. The purple line is the actual inventory level. You can see that we've been up as high as 3,500 homes. You know, and it's interesting being in the industry for a while. You hear people talk about we had 10,000 and 12,000 listings. It's not comparing apples and apples. That was every single type of property, business opportunities, rental properties, everything. You got to be careful. One of the advantages of using the same source all the time is I'm getting the same data. I'm processing it the same way. You may agree or disagree with what I'm doing, and I'd be happy to discuss any of it with you, but at least it's consistent. The red line is the 10%, the least inventory you'd expect at 1,890. The typical inventory you'd expect is up here at 3,055, and the most inventory you'd expect is up here at 3,513. In fact, we're below the least amount of inventory you'd expect. We're at 1,772. We're 100 listings short of the least amount of inventory you'd expect to have. Now we're looking at the number of offers. Same concept. The blue is the cool line because less offers means a cool marketplace. And you can see that the current is below the 10%. And here we're basically about 5%, a little bit more, maybe 6%, 7%, about 7% below the least amount of offers you'd expect to have. Now we're looking at days on sold inventory. To me, days on sold inventory is the real key because you're looking at supply demand balance, and in a free economy, that's what's supposed to determine the future appreciation, future pricing directions of homes, things of that nature. This is probably far more important, in my opinion, than either inventory or offers. And so the hottest you'd expect it to be is 27 days unsold inventory. You were at 33. You'd expect it to be at 40. So we're faster than you'd expect the market to be, but we're not as fast as the fastest you'd expect the market to be. And the slowest you'd expect the market to be is at 49. So now what I'm doing is I'm plotting the days of unsold inventory versus typical. Basically, we're right now at 82% of days of unsold inventory. So days of unsold inventory is 82%. That's lower, so that's a faster paced marketplace. And you can see that the trend is, yeah, there's a fair amount of movement in it, but the trend for this year, frankly, has been an improving marketplace. Here's your days on marketplace, 75th percentile, and you'd expect it, the least time on the marketplace you'd expect is 17, which is exactly where we are. The typical time on the marketplace you'd expect is 20 days, and the most time for the 75th percentile seller is 26 days. And that just tells you something right there. if on July 15th, the longest you'd expect to be on the 75% of the sellers to be on the market is less than a month, less than 4 weeks, that really says something that you got a pretty aggressive marketplace. Here's days on marketplace compared to the typical. So if you were typical, you'd all be right on the horizontal blue line. We're right now 85%, so we're basically taking less time than we normally would. Ask price reductions. Typical is at 99.2. We're right at 99, so we're taking a few more, 0.2% more price reductions. That may not sound like much of a difference, but when you look at how tight these numbers are, it is actually a fairly significant difference. The least you'd expect is 98.5%. 7%, 0.7% down is as far as you want. And that's a concept I'm not sure I'm getting across. The average list price is a very tight and number that nobody else that I'm aware of reports on. But what's so valuable about it is you don't have the lag time. You don't have to wait for escrows to close. Like if you come back here, this actually peaked right here, right around Valentine's Day of 2022. And most people would say that the market was on fire through March and April of 2023. And some people may even say May, but you can see how rapidly the data was falling down by, this is going to be April 1st. And, this is going to be about May 1st here. It's just was in a free fall form. This is an early warning sign is basically what I'm trying to get across. Here's a lot of fluctuation here. You can see that it went way down and then back up. So this is a percentage of normal. We're taking 25% more price reductions now than typical. Here's the frequency of price reductions. We're basically somewhere around 13%. And I'm not sure I believe these numbers. These numbers don't look like they got updated this week. Because this 9.7 is clearly down here. And we are clearly up here somewhere around 10. And the purple line is closer to 14. So these numbers, unfortunately, did not get updated. And the blue line up here is close to 25%, or at least 24. Here is the percentage of normal, and yet again, no update on the data because you're basically right at 100%, and it's saying 95. I think that's old data. And now the next slide is updated. Go figure. That's what happens when you use macros. As far as the average overbidding that buyers are doing, it's right where the more that you'd expect it to be. At this time of the year, you'd expect 6.7% overbid. We're at 6.6%. I don't think you can get more normal than that. Here's the frequency of overbidding. Again, it's very normal. Numbers are on top of one another. It looks like 99. I can't make it out. 99.78 maybe. But basically right at 70% of the sellers are getting more than their asking price for the homes that are selling in all of Silicon Valley. So that's 3 counties. This is looking at the long-term appreciation, and this is on log paper, so that the straight line through here is basically the rate of appreciation. When you're above the rate of appreciation, you'd have downward pressure. When you're below, you have upward pressure. We can go back and look at how dramatic the price drops were in 2023. We went from some number around 1750 down to around 1250. So we lost about $550,000. And then we've turned around and we've regained somewhere around 1.6 now. So we've regained almost all of that. And we basically went from 1.7 down to 1.75 down to 1.6. So we've now lost 150,000. We lost 500,000. We regained 350,000 of that 500,000 that we lost. Here's your active listings Now what we're doing is we're looking at each county that make up Silicon Valley. So you have Santa Clara County in the blue, Alameda County in the gray, and San Mateo County in the orange. And real takeaway is the orange line is about where you'd expect it to be, just looking visually back. And both Alameda and Santa Clara County are nowhere close to the level of inventory you'd expect them to be. Same with the number of offers, although the trend is here is a little different. You know, in San Mateo County, the number of offers is down from where you'd expect it to be, but it's also down in Alameda County. So the offers are down across all three, where inventory was only down in 2 out of the 3 counties. Here's your days of unsold inventory. And again, to me, one of the big key indicators, Santa Clara County at 28, Alameda County at 31, San Mateo County at 42. It's very unusual for San Mateo County to be the slowest of the 3 counties. You can look at that over the time. You can just look at the graph and you can see that the orange line was pretty much at the bottom. And then we hit the pandemic and the orange line basically was at the top and has really come out on the top most recently. Here's the 75th percentile time on the marketplace. You can see all 3 counties were typically following the same trend. San Mateo County was much longer time on the marketplace. As soon as we came out of the pandemic, then the market got superheated and everything was moving. And now it's coming up and taking much longer to sell in San Mateo County. The areas that used to be sought out after are no longer, and I believe it's because of workforce changes. This is the magnitude of price reductions. You can see they're all very close together. Again, a very tight criteria, but the huge advantage here is you don't have the lag time for escrows to close. Ask price reductions, frequency, how common is price reductions? So right now you can see Alameda County is at 11%, Santa Clara County at 14%, and San Mateo County at 15%. Magnitude of overbidding, sale price to list price ratio. This is the magnitude. So San Mateo County has the least overbidding amount at 3.5%. Santa Clara County is next at 5.2%. And Alameda County has got the most overbidding at almost 10.3%. This is how frequent is overbidding. San Mateo County, again, dead last, not to pick on them all the time, 58%. Almost 69% in Santa Clara County and 78% in Alameda County. And this is appreciation, and this is where it now shows up. San Mateo County has done worst since the pandemic, and that puts it on the bottom overall at a 68% appreciation since 2015. Alameda County has the next most at 75. And Santa Clara County has the most appreciation at 85% appreciation since 2015. Here's your sold price going back over time, and the horizontal line is just to give you a reference so you can find another time back to do CMAs or whatever. And that's the same information on regular paper. Here is your estimated monthly payment. Here is actual raw numbers. It's sort of interesting. Santa Clara County went down in new listings the last 5 weeks, where both San Mateo County and Alameda County went up. I would expect it to go up at this time of the year a little bit, and now we're going into the greater Bay Area. We'll flip back on the numbers since that's where we just were. And now we'll look at the graphs. Here's your active inventory, and we talked about Silicon Valley losing inventory. Look at the Central Valley, the yellow line. You know, I think that's 1681. So call it 1,700 listings. They're normally up here at some number, you know, depending on what number you're going to pick, 4,500. So they're basically 1/3 the inventory you'd expect to have. If we think Silicon Valley has a shortage of inventory, man, go out to Central Valley. The other one that's right there with them is the North Bay. North Bay being Solano, Sonoma, Contra Costa County, and Napa. But, you know, it's not as dramatic, but you call it 2,100 and call it something like 4,400. So it's like half the inventory you'd expect. They've had a huge decrease in the level of inventory, but the level of inventory decrease is across the regions. And that's one of the reasons to look at the regional data, is to get an idea of what's going on in the greater area. Now we're looking at the number of offers in the past 5 weeks, and you can see that it's sort of behaving fairly similarly. They're all grouped together just like they typically are. Days of unsold inventory. Central Coast is normally on the top, and it is right now. Silicon Valley is normally at the bottom, and it is now at 33. So it's basically right together. It might be a little closer together than it normally is, and mostly because Silicon Valley has lost some of its luster. This is the 75th percentile time on the marketplace. So you can see Silicon Valley, you can see Central Valley is almost the same in 20 days. Then you get to the Central Coast at 29 days. And then you get to both San Francisco and the North Bay at 32 days. It's taking a month for 75% of the sellers to sell their homes. This is price reductions. You can see the area that's having the most price reductions is San Francisco, and those price reductions are 2.2%, followed by the coast, which is going to be 1.6%. Then you're going to jump up to Silicon Valley, it looks like, at 1%. And then you're going to look at North Bay at 99 at 0.9%, and coming in top is Central Valley doing the least price reductions and only doing 0.6% of a price reduction. This is how common price reductions happening. So this is the Central Coast. That makes more sense. So this blue up here is Central Coast. This blue down here is Silicon Valley has the least percent of sellers reducing their price. Overbid magnitude, sale price. You can see that there are two up here at 106.6%. So they're overbidding dramatically in San Francisco and Marin and in Silicon Valley. And then you have the North Bay that's doing 2.4% overbids. And then you have the Central Valley and the Central Coast at 1.1% overbidding. And it may make not a lot of sense that the Central Valley is so hot, and yet the magnitude of overbidding is so low. Basically, I would maintain that the people that are buying in the Central Valley are doing so for affordability, and therefore, when they find the property, they're financially restrained from overbidding as much as they might want to try to get the house, and therefore the magnitude of overbidding is less. Here's the frequency of overbidding. Silicon Valley is the most at 70% overbids. San Francisco Marin next at 61%. Least is at Central Coast at 45%. This is total appreciation. You can see that San Francisco Marin has just fallen down. And I believe that's definitely related to the workforce changes. This is the monthly payments for each of the different regions. The green URL is what I call my root URL. That's the key that gets you to the YouTube archive channel. Then if you add in 2023, you get to the Saturday Live presentations, and we'll talk about that in just a second. If you add in H for handout 2023-07-15, you'll get the handout, and I did get that up about 8:40 this morning, so it's there for anybody who wants it. And you can get to any specific episode by putting in the year, month, date code after the presentation. And one of the things that I'm trying to do is make this more interactive. And I'm toying with the idea of maybe recording my presentation offline, trying to get it up close to the same time I am now, and then later in the week do a discussion of that week's presentation. And I don't know if that would be of interest. So if people would like me to do something like that, let me know in the comments and I will do that. Are there any questions? Not seeing any questions. Have a great week, everybody. Take care. Bye for now.